Hi all, and thank you for attending today's webinar on scripting in PaintShop Pro. I'm Melanie Hyde, the Product Marketing Manager for photo products at Corel, including PaintShop Pro. And I'm joined by Carole Asselin, who will spend the next 45 minutes or so teaching you the basics of scripting, from what is a script to how to install and run scripts, and how to create your own script, your own PaintShop Pro scripts for basic editing tasks. So I also want to let you know that as a thank you for your attendance today, I'm going to send a follow-up email. You should get that tomorrow, and you're going to get a free script, one of Carole's scripts free that we normally sell. As well, we're going to give you a coupon code for 75% off any script that we sell within the PaintShop Pro Welcome tab. So you should receive that tomorrow as well. And now I'm just going to give you a bit of a brief introduction to Carole, who's going to be doing the demo today. So Carole's a PaintShop Professional. She's part of our PaintShop Professionals program. She's a PaintShop Pro Power user, and she's been using PaintShop Pro since version 7. So she's been teaching people how to create digital layouts, scrapbooking layouts, and elements ever since version 7 of PaintShop Pro. She's also coded hundreds of scripts to help designers, photographers, and digital scrapbookers work faster and more efficiently in PaintShop Pro. And she's one of the most advanced scripters in the digital scrapbooking world. So I'm going to pass things over to Carole now so she can share some of that vast scripting knowledge that she has to help you save time in PaintShop Pro.
Hi. Guess I need to share my screen.
I'm going to help you with that in a second. Okay, Carole, I think you're sharing your screen now, so welcome, Carole, and feel free to kick things off whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'm really glad to be with you and to share my passion about scripts. Scripts have been introduced in PaintShop in version 8, so it's been like already over 12 years, 12, 13 years that this functionality has been added to the program. And the script is something like other programs might call macros, which is basically a sequence that is a sequence of commands and steps that are recorded and played back. So if you are using the same steps for a particular task, you can automate that and have that all recorded in one excuse me, in one script, and so you can play it and it will redo everything at once. It will usually do it much faster than you could and much more precisely also, so that way you don't have to measure or do anything like that. A script can include the familiar commands like resizing, drop shadows, color adjustments, and so on. But it could also include things that are more advanced. And occasionally we've seen comparison between scripts in PaintShop and actions in Photoshop. And although some of them could be similar, they are quite different because in the scripts in PaintShop, using a different language, we have other features that we can include in a script. For example, we can have the user give the option for the user to pick something, like, do you want to have this in red, or do you want to have this in blue, or do you want to have this photo in portrait format or landscape format? So we can give choices. A script can also do some calculation. And this is not going to be in the scope of this presentation because we're going to look into beginner stuff only, but a script can also do some calculations. So making sure that, for example, if you're using a photo and you're supposed to create a certain effect, that the photo is the correct size, or that the effect will be adjusted based on the actual size of your photo. It can also give some randomization for some settings. So for example, if you want to create something that is similar but not exactly the same one time after the other, you can have some randomness included in the script, which makes it so that you can have something slightly different for every single run of the same script. Meaning you're not just going to look like you have some copy and paste element. So by default, there's a script toolbar, and it's here on my screen, if you can see. This is what it looks like. Okay, almost. And by default, this toolbar is not available in the toolbar. It's something that you have to actually get, and you get it under View, Toolbar, and Script. Then you activate the Script toolbar. And then when you have it, you can dock it into your toolbar menus or wherever you want. You know, I tend to have it on top here, but some people prefer to have it somewhere else. That's kind of fine too. So this is the main center for scripts, for using scripts, and also in some cases, like I use that when I do my recording of the scripts, and you'll have some parts here. So we'll just have an overview of the different parts. So the first is the drop-down list of scripts. So once you click on the little arrow, and my computer is just a little slow, and you have a list of the scripts that you might want to use. So this is a very easy way to access the scripts, because although you could go under File, Scripts, Run, and then you have to navigate all through your different folders, this will list your scripts exactly in one single place, whether they are from one version or another version. However you have them, they are going to be available. The next icon is to run the script. That's really self-explanatory. You have a script that is selected, you click on this button, and it's going to run it. Simple as that. Here you have run multiple scripts. So occasionally you might have, let's say you have a script for resizing and a separate script for changing the color, and then a third script to have add a border or a frame. And if you don't have them all in one single script, you can click this button, and then you will get well, I guess we can do it. You get the option to choose several scripts that will be run sequentially. So you have the list of scripts here, and you can click and choose, and you can have 2, 3, up to I don't know how many. I've never really tried to find a maximum, and you order them in the sequence that you want them to be run. The third icon here is to edit the selected script. This will open some kind of a small edit window, but this is only going to be accessible if you have scripts that have been recorded and not edited manually. So most of my scripts have been, 99.9% of my scripts are coded manually, and they've had other kind of commands added to them, so I would not be able to use this function. But if you have a very simple script, like we will do a little later, then we can use it. Here we have the execution mode. By default, older versions of PaintShop had the execution mode set to interactive, meaning anytime there was a command, whether it was drop shadow, resizing, changing a color, or something like that, it would pop up the dialog box, and then the user would have to click OK. That was a little bit of a confusion, because sometimes people thought that they were supposed to change the settings, and by changing the settings, it will kind of mess up the whole rest of the script, because the dialog window would open with the actual settings that were determined by the script. So since this version, or I'm not sure if it's version 19, this is now by default set to silent, meaning it only will give you a dialog window if the scripter decided that you need to give you input. You make either have to choose something or gives you some instructions. So whatever version you have, you make sure that this is not selected or that's in silent mode. Here we have the run script. Again, it will be similar to this icon, except that in this case you can see the little folder icon. It means that by clicking that you will get to go and choose your script. So if for some reason the script is not visible here and you need to access it differently, you can do it that way. I very rarely used it because all my scripts are listed in the drop-down list. We have here to stop the script. Occasionally you might have a script that is either malfunctioning or is stuck in an infinite loop, and then you need to stop it. Then that's the button you would be using. Here we have the 4 buttons or 4 icons for the commands needed for recording your own scripts. So you'll have here the round button is to start the script recording. So as soon as you click on this button, then all the next steps are going to be recorded. Occasionally you might find that you want to adjust something, you want to change layer, or you want to do something and you don't want it into the script. You can pause the recording, do whatever you need to do, and then you restart it. And you can cancel script recording. So if you're starting something and maybe you find out that's not working as it should, there's no point in keeping that particular script. You want to start over, you can cancel the recording. And finally, once you have completed all the steps you want in the script to complete your task, then you can save the script as with the name you want, so you can play it again. Okay, so now I'll just dock my script toolbar here. Once you get a script, whether you purchase them, you download them, there are different sources you can get scripts. First, you have to make sure that it's compatible with your version. Unfortunately, not all the scripts are compatible with all versions. So if you buy an old script that was maybe coded in version, let's say version 10, and you're using 2018, you might want to double check with the script author to make sure it's compatible, because with some slight changes from version to version, some scripts need to be adjusted. A scripter who is staying up to date with all those versions will be able to take that into consideration. So for example, the scripts that I have, some of them have been coded several years ago when it was maybe version 14 that was the current version, but even if you buy that version of the script, it will still work with the new version of 2018 because it was edited in a way to take into consideration all those little tweaks and changes from version to version. So once you download your script, you will simply have to save them into the, maybe I'll go and have a look into my documents. So inside your folders, once you install your program, you have a different number of folders, and when you download a script, you will find a file that has an extension of PSP script. So I don't think I have any in this one, but typically you will have to save that file into the script restricted folder. There is also scripts trusted folder, and whether you put your script in one or the other, it should work, except that some particular commands will require you to have the scripts in the trusted folder. The difference between the two is that by default, place your scripts in the restricted scripts folder. This will work for 99% of the scripts. These are this is the folder where the program will say, okay, you can run any commands from the PaintShop, but we're not going to allow you to execute some commands that might be that might alter either your program or the file itself. So for example, you cannot close a file in PaintShop if as part of the script, if it's in the script restricted folder. It has to be in the trusted script folder. The reason we suggest that you put everything in the restricted folder is that because some of those commands can alter your photos, your images, or your files, you want to make sure that you really trust the script to not affect your files negatively. So typically start with the restricted folder. If you get an error message that says this script has to be run from the trusted script folder, well, then you'll know it has to be put in the other one. But otherwise, just check when you download a zip file. There should be a README file that will tell you exactly where you're supposed to put your actual script. Occasionally also, some scripts will have additional supplies. So it could be a particular brush, could be a preset, could be a preset shape, it could be a pattern. Those additional supplies are needed for that particular script. And if you're not saving those files in the correct folder, which would be matching here. So for example, if one script is requiring a preset shape, then you'll have to put that file in that folder. If not, the script will either use something else by default, which is something that you can often see if you're supposed to have a pattern, and you're supposed to have, let's say, a stripe pattern, and when you run the script, it doesn't look like stripes at all. It looks like, I don't know, concrete or wood or something that's completely different. That's probably because it's missing the pattern that it's looking for. So sometimes it will tell you that the file it's looking for is not there. Sometimes it just won't tell you and will use whatever it can, which is sometimes the file by default. And you get a pretty odd looking result. So again, check the README file. It's very important. That's where the information is placed. Okay, so now that we have downloaded the script, we have installed a script, it's time to play with it. So I have an image here, and I'll just go and find one simple script to be used. Different scripts will require you to start with a different supplies on your workspace. So a lot of scripts, especially like the photo scripts, those scripts that will affect the colors or the look of a photo, will need to start with a photo. That's kind of obvious. If you start and you have an empty workspace, you'll get an error. So for example, I have this photo, and I'm going to use the vintage script, which comes with PaintShop, and I will just run it. And you can see at the bottom the progress. It's working, and it's done. So I'm not sure how many steps were taken out of this or to create this effect, but you can see how it's pretty quick. it's faster than if I was to go into my menu, find the command, adjust the settings, and so on. So that is one way to create it. Okay, I'll just undo this. So going back to my original photo. So this is a simple script that has no dialog window, no information window, and no choice, no option, nothing at all. However, there are some other scripts that will have more, excuse me, will have the user involved a bit more. So I'm just going to close this one and open another one. So I have a nice photo of a dead tree with a reflection. So what I can do now, I'll find a different script. And I'll go with my custom playing card. This is a script that is available in the Discovery Center that will turn my photo into an actual playing card. In this case, although I have a photo open, I chose my photo, it's not going to use it, and you'll see what happens. So I start the script and I get the information. You have information sometimes that will tell you about the size, the orientation, or the type of image that you're supposed to start with, or sometimes that you shouldn't start with anything at all. So it's creating a blank. Now I'm going to create a playing card. So let's put I'm going to make a Queen of Heart. So you can see how I have those options. I could choose the heart, diamond, club, spade. So I'll choose heart, and it will create the card. Now it asks me to open the image or the photo that I wanted to use. What happens is that the script does not necessarily recognize that there was an image open. So I'm going to reopen this one, and it will use it. So now it's time to center the photo to my liking, because it centered it, but maybe the actual photo, I want to have it slightly aligned differently, maybe sideways. So it will depend on your photo, because your photo was likely going to be larger than the space allowed. So you can play around, you can have someone's face more centered, or someone maybe you want the person completely off the screen. It's up to you. And now, if you notice that I had the command was telling me to continue, so I run the script a second time. Whoops. Oh, I guess I didn't. So I'll cancel this one. So I have my image and everything is in here. And if I'm happy, I simply have to now right-click, merge visible, and I have a nice card that I can use for either I can print it or can use that on a different project. Let's have a different look at a different kind of script that also is run using options for the user. So I'm going to use this photo. And I'm going to use the photo splitter. Okay. Photo splitter. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, I think I might have a little bit of a sound issue. don't know. Let me just check. Okay. I hope you can hear me. Okay. Sometimes technology is nice, but sometimes it doesn't want to play nice. It's okay. So now I have the photo splitter, and this script will actually split my photo in different number of pieces, and I can play with those pieces afterwards. So I can run this script, and it will explain here that the script will cut away any photo in various pieces, even or uneven, with your choice of options. So each piece will end up on a separate layer that you can manipulate as you wish by changing color, saturation, or other effects. So it gives you the information. It works on a copy of the image. If you notice, it kind of made a copy. And I'll get to choose the number of pieces I want to use. How many horizontal pieces I want. So maybe I don't want any horizontal piece other than the one, but I might want some vertical cuts. Same. Okay, so maybe I want them to have different heights. And in this case, it's going to be an example of the randomness, because even if I was to run the script a second time on the same image with the same settings, I would get something different. So do I want space between the cut pieces? Like, why not? Let's go with yes. How wide? Let's say 10 pixels. This is a default, but I could really go wherever, whatever number I want. Do I want rounded corners? So as you can see, those are all different options. So let's say no for the rounded corners, because I know it's going to take a little bit more time. So do I want to group them? So no. And you can see how it's working on its own, creating different layers. And now everything is like that. So I could now use my pick tool, select one piece, rotate it, get the next one, rotate it, and so on. And once I'm done all those tweakings and moving and everything, I can add a drop shadow. So I can play around with my photo in that way. Or I can choose to take one photo and maybe change the hue saturation, colorize, and if I go down to the 0 saturation, it will turn into gray. And I can alternate, and going to it, Control Y, which is the shortcut for repeat. I could have something like this. So it's the kind of script that gives you many options. So I could have had no gap, I could have had larger gap, I could have had the cuts vertically, I could have had vertically and horizontally. So many options, and I would get also at something different every time I run the script. So this is one kind of script where you start again with a photo that is open. Another kind of script that will ask you actually to start with nothing on your workspace would be the film strip. Film strip. And in this case, I have to start with nothing. It's written in the README file. So it will start to ask me how many photos I want on my strip. Let's say I'll go with 6. And my photos are, maybe I want to have them square. I can't remember if they are horizontal or vertical, but I want them to be square. So it will be trimming them. Well, guess something didn't work out. Okay. Things like that happen. In this case, it should have asked me for to open the photos afterward instead of having the photos open before. So some scripts will ask you to do that before, some scripts will ask you to do it after. So make sure you read the README file. And if you have a script that has an error like that, usually you can come back to the script author and ask. Sometimes maybe you didn't read the instructions, maybe you're missing some supplies, or sometimes you might be using a different version of PaintShop and the script might not have been edited and updated. That's sometimes little issue. Okay, now that you know how to use a script, install a script, you would probably want to create your own script. So let's go back and open an image, and I'm going to open again that one script, that one photo I mean. And we will create, let's say that I want to turn this photo into black and white, and I want to add a border. Maybe two borders actually. We'll just have fun with that. So I will start my script by clicking on that icon. So now everything I will do will be recorded. So first step, I will be going to adjust color, hue and saturation, colorize, and by changing the saturation down to 0, it will turn it to grayscale, black and white. Maybe I want to have more contrast. So let's see if we can also do adjust, brightness, contrast, and let's go back to 0. And the contrast, maybe we'll increase the contrast a bit. At least it's for the illustration. So it's set to 32. And now let's add some borders. So I can go to Image, Add Borders, and I'll add a white border. Maybe they're 10 pixels. You can see it very tiny. I'll go again, add border. This time I'll do 100 pixels and I'll make it black. You can see how it's looking now. And we can go again, add border. Let's make another 10 pixels in white. And how about another one? Let's do 300 in black. Okay. And to complete, I'll just use the picture tube, and I have a picture tube here with my name that I can use. Let's see how big it is. There it is. So I have it in the right place. Okay, now I'm done with this picture, and I will simply save the script. So by default it's called recorded, but I will call it let's say demo frames. There. So I have my script now that is recorded. It should be all ready to use again on a different image. So I'll open a different image. And 5,000, let's see. So I have this image. I will duplicate it just so I don't work on my original. And I will have to find my demo frame. Demo frames. Demo frame. So you can see now that the script that was recorded and saved now appears in my drop-down list. And let's see if it works. Occasionally you'll find that a script that you even recorded might not work, and we'll see why. Well, that's pretty good. And you can see how fast that was. It took, what, 2 seconds? But one thing that you might notice is that if you look at, I'll just size it down so we can see. As you can see, my logo was placed inside the frame, but on this image, it's over the edge of the frame. So the reason is simply because my photos were not exactly of the same size. So the starting photo of this one was probably a bit larger than the second one, which brings me to that detail that why sometimes a script might not work if you are using a photo that is different size. For example, in the first instance, I clicked at a position, and if you look at the bottom here, you'll see exactly the position, which was about 4,500 by 3,500. That was the position, and the whole photo was 5,400. But the other one, if I go at the same position, my photo was smaller, so I end up a little further. And if I am to use a much smaller image, so let's try it. So this photo is only 1,600 pixels. So we'll see the difference if I run the exact same script. Okay, so the script is completed, and you can see how it looks very different, because 10 pixels out of an image that is 1,600 pixels doesn't give the same look as if I have a 4,000 or 5,000 pixel image. And you can also see that the logo here doesn't appear. Why? Because it was at the position of 4,500. So it goes to 4,500, which is like way over here and way down. So it's like it's clicking to place it here, and obviously you won't see it because it's completely out of the size that is available for the image. So this is the kind of thing that really has to be taken into consideration if you're creating a script that will have something placed at a certain location. So is it going to be in the center? If it's in the center, you see it in the center. But changing image, the script will not. Okay, I got a question of how I duplicated an image, and since it's very important to duplicate your image when you work, I'm using the shortcut, but it could be under Windows. No, sorry. Yeah, Windows, duplicate here, or Shift D. I guess after a while you get used to it, and using your left hand, you do Shift D whenever you open a new image. And this is very important because once you've run a script, you might quote-unquote destroy your original image. and maybe you would like to use your original image for something else, a different project or something. So always work on a duplicate. Often scripts, well, not, I wouldn't say often, but some scripts will actually do that and create a duplicate initially and work on the duplicate. We could have done that. Actually, we could have recorded the duplicate command in this script, but I didn't. So if you do something like that, it might be a good idea to work on a duplicate. Okay, so this kind of gives you an overview of how you can create your scripts. I said that we could look at the edit the script. So let's just do a second one. So I'm going to close this, and I will do Control Z to undo all my steps here. And I will redo it, like I said, using the duplicate. So I'll start my script, and again I do Control D. Oh, sorry, not Control D, it's Shift D. So duplicate, Shift D. See? I'm going to go back to the color there. So I'm going to cancel because I did a boo-boo. That happens, no problem. Nothing is broken. So I start the script, go Shift D to duplicate. That's going to be part of my script. I'll go to Adjust, Hue Saturation, Colorize, turn it to gray. I'll add border, started with 10 pixels white. If I right click here, I get these colors, which kind of nice because you get to choose the standard 10 and the last 10 you use. So it's faster than opening the whole palette. And then we did add border. We did 100. Right click, take black. Again, image, add borders. In this case, I have the symmetric checked. If I didn't have it checked, I could have different size for top and bottom and so on. So, but for this example, making it symmetric makes more sense. And we go again with add borders and do 300. And I'll go with my tube, and just to change things, I'll add a new layer. So I'll add a new raster layer, and I'll add my tube there. The reason I add the layer in this case is because maybe on a different image I want to tweak the placement. Being on a different layer gives me that option. And now I'm happy. I save it. I'll go demo frames 2. Okay. So I'll minimize this and see my original hasn't been changed. I'll minimize that one. And I'll open another one. So I have a photo. I'm not sure if it's the same size. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I'll just now pull down the list of scripts to find my newest one. So demo frames 2 is here, and I run it. You can see it made a copy of my original image, and it added my tube. So now I can use my move tool and try to grab it and move it somewhere else. Maybe I want to put it where it's more visible, or maybe I want to have it in the frame. So it gives me that option. So as I said, you could edit the script. So by clicking on the edit, it opens something here, and this is where you can do a few edits. You can remove some steps, but the editing is quite limited. So maybe you find that, oh yeah, you did a command, you undid the command, and you just want to remove that from the script. You can simply go and let's say I want to colorize and I want to delete this. So now I don't have it anymore. I could save over, or I can save it as a different name. No problem. I can save it as demo frame 3. And I can close that. So I hope that this kind of gives you an idea of what you can do with scripts. As you can see, scripts are not dangerous for your program. There's no risk. You don't break anything. So go ahead, get some scripts, and just play around with them and see how you can create really interesting photo effects or elements or whatever you wish to do using the scripts. So I'm kind of wondering if we have any questions now.
Hi, Carol. Yeah, we have a few questions.
Okay.
I will read them out to you.
Sure.
The first one is how many photos to a script? So I think the answer, correct me if I'm wrong, is it depends on the script, correct? Like when you were showing the film script, a dialog box popped up and asked how many pictures you wanted to use for that script?
Exactly. So it might depend on the actual script. So some scripts will use 100 pictures. Sometimes some scripts of mine, for example, will use all the photos in a particular folder. That's one option. But maybe the person asking the question might be also wondering about running the script on multiple photos, and there's also the batch mode that if, for example, if you wanted to add this kind of frame on 200 pictures that you have taken of certain event, you might use the batch mode, which is under File, this batch process, and then in the batch process you can choose the script and then apply it to hundreds of pictures.
Perfect. Thank you. And then our next question is, can you use a GIF file format for scripts, or is it just static image files?
Well, PaintShop does not manipulate other than static images. So if it's a GIF, it will still be only one frame, kind of. So you won't have the whole animation that comes with the typical GIF.
Okay. Next question. If somebody has recorded a script themselves and they move it into the trusted folder, will it be able to save and close the file?
Yes. If you are recording your own scripts, you should be able to trust it. So you could do it there. And yes, if your script involves closing a photo or closing a file or something like that, then yes, you should be able to place it in the trusted folder.
Perfect.
And run it correctly afterward too.
Okay, what language is a script written in if somebody wanted to edit a script manually?
The language used for the scripts in PaintShop is Python. And Python is quote-unquote an easy language because it's based on English. So if you're familiar with English, a Python code looks like it tells you what it is. So you have drop shadows. It's not a code, a short code of DP something. It says drop shadow, so you can actually see what it is, which is different from actions or scripts. No, because like Photoshop has some scripts, but it's written in a different language. It's using JavaScript, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why if you happen to see a script and it says for Photoshop, you cannot use that in PaintShop because it's a different language.
Okay, thank you. That was another question that came in, was whether you can use Photoshop scripts in PaintShop Pro.
No,
Um,
unfortunately.
and then can you put a stop in a script to make adjustments the same way that you can with an action in Photoshop?
You can, but you might not be able to do it directly with the recorded scripts. This is an actual step that has to be manually included. It's called a pause script. But at the same time, you can also, if you want to run, for example, let's say I'm going to be if I was to run my script as interactive like this, you'll see how now, see for the colorize, instead of doing it on its own, it asks me. So if the adjustments only happen to be in a dialog box, then if you run it interactively, you get to choose. So for example, instead of the 10 pixel here, if I wanted to have 20, I'd be fine. So see. So as you can see, I changed the size because I ran it interactively. But
Perfect.
when you have a long script, running interactively can take a long time. And since it's supposed to save time, kind of defeats the purpose.
Right. And can you undo a script after it's been run?
Like you just do Control Z, or you can undo here, for
Yeah.
example.
And
See?
that will, yep,
Yep.
perfect.
You cannot undo only one step though. It's like the script is one command, so it's like it's all or nothing.
Got it.
Except if you have a script that runs in separate steps, like I had earlier, one that it paused, asked me for doing something, and then continues. Then when you do Control Z, or if you do the undo, it will undo until the last pause in the script.
Okay. And will scripts from earlier versions of PaintShop Pro work in PaintShop Pro 2018?
Typically it should, but as I mentioned, it depends on the actual scripts, the actual commands. For example, a very old script that was written maybe for version 8, I mean 12 years ago, using the text command. The text command changed in version 9, so you switch from version 8 to version 9, it won't work. Or at one point you have some commands that change name. So if the scripter is not aware of those things, or if the script was never updated, occasionally it might happen that it won't work. But most scripts can be edited to take that into consideration if the author is up to date. But I would say that probably 90%, 95% of the scripts are not using too advanced commands. So photo scripts are typically going to be working pretty much in any version.
Okay, and there's a lot of questions coming in about picture tubes. I
Yes.
think people are interested in picture tubes and how they work and how you choose a tube. So I know that's deviating away from scripting a bit, but I know that you use picture tubes regularly in your day-to-day work with PaintShop Pro. So do you think
Yes.
you could give a very quick, keeping in mind we've only got 5 minutes left and lots of questions, but
Yes. Okay.
quick.
Well, picture tubes, basically you think of it as a set of little stickers. I don't know if you remember, and for example, at Christmas, you have little stickers all on a roll, and so tubes are little bit like stickers, as in you can stamp them. So I can go and stamp, stamp, stamp. But that's the simplest way to think about them, because there are other kinds of scripts, sorry, tubes that will do something else. So for example, some are going to be like confettis, and you just drag and it places things. Or you might have things like, let me see. Got quite a few. This one, let me just put a white or a white layer so you can just see. So if I have a tube here, some tubes you just drag and it will create something that is sequential, or you have ropes. Where are my ropes? You have a rope, you can change the size, and you can have a little rope that really looks like it's continuous. So it's, and what you think of it, there are just little stickers kind of thing, but with different settings that are much more advanced and makes the picture tube so much more powerful than just stickers. Hope it answers a bit.
Yes, thank you, Carole.
I think there's a blog post also on the Corel site about picture tubes. Maybe you might want to link to that.
I can do that. I can send that out in the follow-up email. I've got a question on how do you do looping?
What you mean by looping?
I'll just continue the conversation in the chat message then, and we'll move on to the next one.
Okay.
Give me a second here. I'm just going through some of the questions.
Oh, thinking of looping, maybe the person wants to know like a particular command being done several times.
Right.
Could be that. So, for example, if I have maybe if I am to take my image and cut it in small pieces and then add something like 20 times, it's a command that goes, and it cannot be done directly with the recording. It has to be added manually.
Okay. Carole, with just 2 minutes left, I've got a ton of questions coming in, which is great. I'm hearing a lot of positive feedback, so thank you. The last question I'm going to take here, where can I download the free script? So I did mention that I'm going to be giving away one of Carole's scripts free to the people who attended. I'm going to send that script, a link to that script, as well as a coupon code for 75% off any scripts that we sell within our Welcome tab in PaintShop Pro 2018. That's going to be sent out tomorrow in a follow-up email. So it should happen around noon Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. It's 24 hours after today's webinar when that email goes out. So I'll send the YouTube link. I'll send the coupon code to purchase some of your own scripts and that free script as well. And what I will do for those people who didn't get a chance to have their question answered is I'll work with Carole to pull together a question and answers document, and I can circulate that around as well in that follow-up email so that everybody gets a chance to have their questions answered and everybody can see everybody else's questions too and hopefully learn something. So I just want to say thank you for attending. And our next webinar that we're going to be doing is an intro to working with layers in PaintShop Pro. If that's of interest to anybody, that will be in November. I think November 2nd is the date, but you'll see a registration email in the coming days for that one, I believe. So hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned a lot. Thank you again, Carole, and see you next time. Carole, any closing remarks at all?
No, just don't be scared of scripts. They are powerful, but they're so much fun to play with.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.